So I'm going down this canal bank right here because the lake's got really muddy. So we decided to come up in this canal, and the water is way cleaner in here. So what these fish do, they move down in about, let's say about 15 foot of water. They pull up the spawn off these rocks about 3 foot down. That's where it meets the sand, and there's a shelf. They'll spawn right on the edge of them rocks, and they just pull down this deep, and they want to come back up and spawn again, another cycle. They just go right up there on that shelf. And they do the same thing for feeding. Not just for spawning. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just trying to cover water down this bank. And now if I catch another fish here in a second, then I'll slow down with a worm and just try to find comb it. This ain't your typical Florida fishing right here. You know, nobody thinks about fishing canals and creeks and stuff when you come into Florida. You're thinking about, let's go to Okeechobee and let's go flip some reeds and cast around pads. A lot of times I'll pull in these canals when it's windy. It's got everything all stirred up. You know, it's hard to hurt these waterways unless they're flowing a bunch of nasty water. And canals are gonna be pretty stable. But when you start getting into rain and stuff, your creeks will start muddying up, but not these canals. There's one right there. Come here, buddy. Not a bad start. Well, if there's this little guy, there's gotta be some big ones nearby. What were you thinking, little guy? Hungry fella. All right, we might be onto something. Been working down this bank, got a couple little bites here and there. Started off with a chatterbait just to cover water. Went to a worm, no bites. But I really wanted to get against them rocks because the water temp's a little cool, and what happens is with the sunlight, them rocks heat up. And so I was like, well, the only way I can get close as possible without getting hung up is to throw this frog, and we're gonna go on through here and see if we get any bites on it. Try to bounce the frog off the rocks and just work it a couple times, let it pause, because them fish are just gonna pull up there and then hopefully crush it. There's two different frogs I like to run, and it's a black frog, and then they call this color Killer Gill. It's got like a silverish bottom. Either they're eating bluegill, shad, this pretty much covers it all. I feed these tassels through there. I know a lot of frogs are coming stock with them now. This is something I've been doing for the last probably 8 years. But when a fish is not wanting to eat it right away and they're wanting just eyeballing it, that little bit of sparkle might key them to bite. There's one right there. Come here, guy. So, I think what's happening here, and it happens all over the lake. So, these fish, they like to spawn in schools. I think they stay schooled up all year long, you know, feeding and spawning. Not so the bottom's good. Like, I've been out there and the bottom's great for miles. And then you be fishing, and then bam, get bit, and then go on for 200-300 yards, nothing. These fish are bad about spawning in schools, I call it. You could do the same pattern in the evenings and mornings. But in the summertime, I'll come down through these stretches like this when water temps get really hot. And in the mornings, these fish will come up here and feed on bait. And once it gets hot, they'll pull on down. But you can get a morning and evening bite down these stretches. That's a big one right there. Come on, big girl. All right. This is a grown one right here. Come on. Come in. All right. Not a bad frogfish. What a beautiful fish. That big one we just caught just a second ago, what I'm doing is I'm throwing up there against the rocks, bouncing off the rocks, but that one hit it right where I thought they'd be, about 3 foot off the bank, right where them rocks in. She came over there and crushed it. And it takes a while to do it, but self-control, just let them eat that frog, reel down and then crack them. You just don't want to preset the hook and end up losing the fish. Preset the hook on these fish, they might not have it all the way down and you end up losing the fish. So your hookup ratio will be a lot better if you can just give them a second to eat it. So you can see right here at the rocks, this is the starting point, like 36 feet, and that's where the water meets the rock. That 30 foot is right, straight in front of the trolling motor where I'm facing. You got the rocks that come in, and you got, about 5 foot of a shelf right here for them to spawn on, and then it drops pretty quick right after that. And then fish, that's your strike zone, is from where the water meets the rocks to where the end of that shelf is. And so you got about, give or take, 8 to 12 foot of stretch. And after I get done working that thing about 12 foot off the bank, I go ahead and reel in and recast. Let me go over a couple things with you real quick on my setups. For the frog, there's a lot of cover here in Florida, so I stay with my 7.6 heavy. Got this with a myth rod. High gear ratio reel, 8:3 to 1. I can just gather up that line real quick. If the fish eats it and runs to me real quick, I can gather it up. 65-pound Suffix braid, dark green. I like to stay dark as possible. Any other popping frog, Spro, Gambler, those are pretty much my go-tos. Pretty much it's simple, got heavy line, heavy rod, to get these big fish out of here. So for my ChatterBait setup, I run 2 different setups, one with and one without braid. This one's got 15-pound, Suffix fluorocarbon. I'm running a Mini Max with a mooch minnow on the back. Awesome little trailer. I run the same rod for braid or fluorocarbon. I'm running a 7.3 medium heavy, and this is the Oath series. I've run a 7.3 to 1 gear ratio reel and 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon or 30-pound braid. So next time you're down in Okeechobee or anywhere in Florida, it's not all about grass, lily pads. You gotta try some of these canals too. They're protected, they don't get much pressure. They're all pretty much residential fish because they have plenty of bait, water depth, pretty much all the scenarios they need. Cover water with a chatterbait or a frog, and once you locate some fish, you can slow down and drag a worm or whichever if the bite slows down. Yeah, it's a blast. You can catch some big ones in them canal systems.